And now it is time for our scripture reading. And my scripture today is Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 through 40. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus replied, You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. Thus ends the reading of our scripture, Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 through 40. Excuse me. We celebrate Valentine's Day this Friday, and I want to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. It's thought of as the day of love. For to love and to be loved is one of the greatest gifts. Most of us, we want to be loved, and we yearn to love. A memorable line from The Wizard of Oz is from the Tin Man, and it has resonated with me through the years. He was speaking to Dorothy about his desire for a heart, and he told her, and remember, my sentimental friend, heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others. Accepting love is equally as important as giving it. When we accept love, we give others an opportunity to love. I have always believed that love comes in many different packages and in different ways. And I don't think we can or should put love into a box and limit it to just romantic love. Love is much bigger than a single relationship. God is divine love. And God is infinite, which means that divine love is infinite, and it cannot and should not be contained or limited. And so too is our love unlimited, and it has no boundaries. It is infinite. Now I want to take this just a step further. Who and what are we? At the very core, who are we? We are each an expression of God, which means that if God is divine love, then we are the expression of divine love. Love is embedded in every fiber of our spirit. It is who we are. It is our divine inheritance. It is embedded in our DNA. And this great, great gift is a blessing. And it is meant to be shared. Each and every one of us is the expression of divine love in a physical form, sprinkling God's love wherever we go. Which brings me back our scripture lesson. In Matthew, Jesus said, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And he goes on to tell them, a second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. He is telling us the greatest commandment is to love God with our all, with everything we have, our heart, our soul, and our mind. And get this, equally as important is that we love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Not less than, but equally as important. Jesus tells us loving our neighbor is just as important as our loving God. We are to give our neighbor the same unconditional love as we are to give to God. And this stresses the importance of loving our neighbors. He then says, the entire law and all of the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments, meaning everything is based upon our loving God and loving our neighbors. And when we do these two things, everything else will fall into place. And why is this? Because by loving God and loving our neighbor, we are living in harmony with the universal laws. And we are living from a consciousness of God. That's what's in us. The energy of love flows through all we do. What does it mean to love our neighbor as we love ourselves? It means having compassion, caring, embracing our diversity, and respecting our cultural heritages, helping others when they are in need, lifting them up when they are down, taking time to look at a situation from a different lens, which may include walking in someone else's shoes so you can understand how they feel or what they are going through, putting another's needs in front of our own, doing the right thing when a situation does not affect us, and being an advocate for humanity. I was watching the CBS morning news show last weekend, and I was very touched by a story. They were doing a segment on a museum they opened in New York on the diary of Anne Frank. And they interviewed a Jewish man who had survived the Holocaust. When the German soldiers were rounding up the Jews, non-Jewish neighbors were taking in Jewish families and children into their homes to hide them from this terrible, awful fate that awaited them. This man was taken in by a non-Jewish family, and they treated him as their own. He called his second mother his war mother. Many years later, this man asked his war mother, "Why did you risk your life to take me in?" She told him, because it was the right thing to do. Let us never forget what happened to our neighbors during the Holocaust and be committed that it doesn't happen again. Sometimes the right thing to do may mean putting ourselves at risk to help our neighbors. But there are times in life where we just can't turn our back on someone when they need us the most. We may be their voice. We may be the voice or the life vest that they need. And most likely, God put us on their path for this reason. Who is our neighbor? Our neighbor isn't just the person living across the street or down the block that we like hanging out with and we invite over to our house for dinner on the weekend, or those we choose to socialize with and have a lot in common with. Our neighbor is every person on this planet. That includes the people we don't see eye to eye with, those we have nothing in common with, or the person we may consider our adversary. And oh yes, even those who have wronged us. Every country, every ethnic group, every person on this planet is our neighbor, regardless of race or religion. These are our neighbors. And our second commandment teaches us to love every person on this planet as we love God. Here in this country, we are a diverse nation. And that's what makes us so special. People from all walks of life coming together to make a better life for themselves and their families. And we have so many opportunities to learn about our neighbors, their customs, their beliefs, their heritage. Personally, it has made my life so much richer to learn about other people. And it's as simple as taking the time to open our hearts, our minds, and our ears, to listen, to be open, to experience. We expand our awareness with the wealth of diversity in this country. I grew up the granddaughter of immigrants who migrated to this country from Europe. And I'm so grateful my grandparents were welcomed and given the chance at making a better life for their children, grandchildren, and future generations. When my grandfather arrived at Ellis Island many, many years ago, he was welcomed into this country. And not far from Ellis Island stood proud the Statue of Liberty. She welcomed many to this country with a sign that said, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." And I learned more about my roots from my cousin, who's with us today. Her husband visited the town where my grandfather grew up. And she shared with me that many families in my grandfather's little town were very poor. And I was touched to learn that once he was established in this country, he sponsored his neighbors to come to this great land of opportunity. This country, with her open arms, has become known as the melting pot. Many led to the golden door of new opportunities. If one was willing to work, the sky was the limit. And in our country, we have the opportunity to embrace all of these ethnic diversities and cultures from around the world. We are a diverse nation, and our diversity makes us richer. We truly have an opportunity to learn more about our neighbors and to love them as we love God. This month, we celebrate Black History Month to honor the contributions and achievements of Black people and to promote equity and justice. We have an opportunity to learn about the struggles they faced and what they endured before the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race, sex, color, religion, and national origin. I was barely out of diapers when this act was passed. So much of what I have learned is through my neighbors. I have gotten a glimpse, and only a glimpse, into Black history through the rise of Reverend Jackson. And I learned more about the struggles of his people and what they faced and the inexcusable, unconscionable atrocities they endured. Let us never forget what occurred in Selma, Alabama on the Edmund Pettus Bridge on March 7th, 1965, and what our neighbors endured while fighting for their civil rights. And let us each be committed to moving forward so this doesn't happen again. I have had an opportunity to learn more about the richness of the Black culture, and it has made my life richer. I've learned more about people like Harriet Tubman. What a hero she was. She successfully escaped slavery, and then she became a conductor on the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad, it was formed to help slaves escape to their freedom. And Harriet Tubman helped at least 300 people during her time as a conductor. Now, this took an army of people uniting together to create this Underground Railroad. And they provided shelter for the slaves on each leg of their journey until they reached a free area in the North. And this was not without risk or grave consequences. Both Black and white people joined together to help their neighbors, to do the right thing. Harriet Tubman was given the nickname of Moses for liberating so many enslaved people at great risk to her own life, a title that was earned and well-deserved. And she also fought for women's rights, and she was a humanitarian. And while I was preparing my sermon, I came across a quote from Maya Angelou, another beautiful soul who left her footprint in history. She was an author, poet, civil rights activist, and an actress. She was Hollywood's first Black female director. And Maya Angelou touched people with her words. And she touched me when I read her quote. My wish for you is that you continue. Continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. It was a reminder to me, no matter what is going on in the world, never, never, never stop being who you are. Astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. In other words, love your neighbor as you love God. Regardless of what is going on in the world or how others treat you, always, always remember who and what you are. A child of God, the expression of divine love in a physical form. Each kernel of love, act of kindness, and thought of peace that we release adds to the collective consciousness. Let us unite together and flood the collective consciousness with love, kindness, and compassion, making this world a better place. As we celebrate Valentine's Day this week, let us remember who we are. We are divine love, and we were taught to love our neighbor as much as we love God, with all our heart, soul, and mind. And loving our neighbor may include being their voice or advocating for them, helping them, doing the right thing, seeing them as a child of God, because each and every one of us are children of God. Just imagine as sung to us by John Lennon. Just imagine a world where each and every person loves God and loves their neighbor with all their heart, their soul, and their mind. Imagine a unified world of peace and mutual respect for our differences, where we embrace the uniqueness of our neighbors. That is love. I will leave with you a second quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Happy Valentine's Day and many blessings to each of you.